This is Coogan Cassius for IFL-TV. We're in Glasgow here for the Ricky Burns versus Terence Crawford press conference. With me, I've got a very tanned Eddie Hearn. Hello, Eddie.
Hi, Coog. AKA Doc Cotton. What's going on?
Why are you mocking me?
What's that, mate? On here?
I've lost my voice.
Why?
I don't know, why? Why do things happen?
It's been a while. Should get it checked out. Have you had it checked out?
Yeah, I've been on antibiotics. It's got better. I couldn't talk last week, literally couldn't. Just having to blank all in.
Rather you'd have interviewed me then.
Why?
So I could just say what I want without you, you know.
Say what you want anyway, you know, it's still got...
You always give me tough questions, don't you? No other promoters, just me, but...
Ricky Burns versus Terence Crawford. I've seen a bit of Terence Crawford. This is going to be a very difficult fight for Ricky.
Yeah, I think it's probably the toughest fight Ricky's ever had. I mean, you know, he's had two really tough fights in his last two. Gonzalez was an unknown quantity, but turned out to be exceptional. And Beltran was always what we knew he would be, which is a world-class fighter. Crawford is unbeaten. He's top ranks, starlet. He's an HBO fighter. He's heavily backed in the US, highly thought of. But you know, you've got to remember what Ricky Burns is all about and what he's been through and the level of opposition he's been in against. I think Crawford is untested. And I think Ricky's more motivated for this fight than he has been, you know, potentially throughout his whole career. He's got, I don't think he's got the stuff to prove, but I think he feels he has. I think he's had unfair criticism from the Beltran fight. And now he's back firing on all cylinders, ready to beat, you know, one of the hottest fighters in the division, which is Terence Crawford. It's a wonderful fight, and I'm over the moon to bring it to Glasgow.
Talking about Ray Beltran, obviously, by all accounts, he's not very happy with you and he's not very happy with this whole situation. Feels that he should have been given his rematch. So, is that still a possibility for the future, Burns Beltran too?
Yeah, maybe. The more I listen to Ray Beltran, the more boring it gets. I mean, he knows, and his manager Steve Feder knows, who's openly said it. We tried our hardest to make that fight. Both Beltran and Crawford are promoted by Top Rank, and the fighter that Top Rank wanted to fight Ricky Burns was Terence Crawford. When we fought Beltran originally, it was a voluntary defence and we had options on him, and I offered him well over what he was supposed to get for the rematch, because we had that clause in the contract should Beltran have won, and I offered him well over the top of what he was supposed to get. He was happy with the terms, but unfortunately his promoters chose to put Terence Crawford in the fight, and they pushed him as the mandatory challenger. He was the mandatory challenger, and we had to fight Terence Crawford or lose the title, get stripped of the title. Now, the only way the fight could have happened with Beltran is if Top Rank would have said, no, Beltran gets the shot, and then the winner fights Crawford. They didn't do it, and that's why Beltran didn't get his shot. No other reason. You know, he can go on as much as he wants. Shouldn't go on at us, should speak to his promoters, and, you know, potentially he can fight the winner.
This card, March the 1st, Man of Steel, it's a very good poster. You can't see it from here. It is a very good poster. You idiot. Stack card again. We're going to see the Scottish talent, Brophy, Roberts, Slowey, probably John Simpson, and obviously Waddy Camacho and Stephen Simmons. You know, these guys have been at it on Twitter and they've been bickering for a while now, and you finally got the fight made.
Yeah, I think, you know, it's important that you make fights that obviously people want to see, but you make fights that people care about. And I think Simmons against Camacho, because of all the beef gone on, and because I think it's a very good fight as well, taking all that away, it was good to get it made. And listen, I'll take my hat off to Waddy, because he's making his trip up to Scotland. You know, it's going to be hostile for him, but it's going to be a great experience. And Simmons as well, great young fighter. You know, both really good fighters. And if you look at Waddy's career, you know, he made some dreadful mistakes in the preparation for China Clark. And against Conquest, he just, I don't know what he done. He lost his mind. He had Conquest out in round 1 and 2, and just chose to try and, you know, work off the jab for 7 or 8 rounds, and ended up losing the fight. And it was a weird, you know, but I think he's learnt a lot, come back with a good win last time, and I think Camacho against Simmons is a really good fight, and I think the build-up is going to be great. You know, as we continue to grow the Scottish talent on the card, Brophy will step up for a Celtic title fight. Slowey, hopefully push him in the position for a British title fight soon. Simpson will be on. Young Martin Ward as well will be on the card. Scotty Card will be on. He's going to fight Paul Appleby over 10 rounds. And of course Anthony Joshua, gold medalist, going to bring him up to Scotland for the first time. It's going to be a great night. You know, a phenomenal main event and a packed card.
Obviously there was some move about with the dates, wasn't there? Because this wasn't the original date you wanted, but wanted to give Ricky Burns as much time to obviously get over the injury. But how is that injury now?
Yeah, it's great. He's back sparring, and you know he's looking great, raring to go. Yeah, the dates wise, we had up until March the 7th, I think it was, to do the fight with the WBO, and we looked at the 8th and the 15th as well. We looked at trying to get it in the Hydro because I thought that would have been a good place to go. But essentially, we had the opportunity to make it 3 weeks later, and because of the injuries that Ricky suffered, it just made sense to just make it as late as possible. So, and obviously with the start of the year and the paydays, etc. We want everyone to get a few quid in their pocket and then come out and watch the show. So I'm expecting a packed crowd, sold out stadium, and a great night of boxing. And I really fancy Ricky Burns for this fight. I think people see it as a 50-50 fight, and I believe it's a tough one, but I think he's motivated and he's going to put in a great performance.
A few ins and outs regarding matchroom fighters and new signings over the last week or so. Quite notably, Thomas Stalker has left Matchroom. Can you clarify why he's left Matchroom?
Well, his contract expired at the end of last year. I was talking to his manager, Neil Marsh. Told him he could box on February the 1st and then March the 15th after that. And I spoke to him last week. You know, we hadn't made them an offer as such, and they got another offer from Frank Warren. They told me about the offer, and that was a good opportunity for him financially. I probably couldn't give him the longevity or the guarantee of an offer for the duration that the other one was. I've been a little bit disappointed by the choice of opponents that I've had to deal with. He's 29 years old, and I want him to step him up at a really fast pace, but I wasn't really given the opportunity to do that. And then he got injured. But even then, coming back, I had plans of stepping him up on February the 1st and then put him in a title fight on March the 15th. But the team were a little bit reluctant. Not Tom. Tom as a fighter would fight anyone, of course. And he's got to support his family, and I just don't really feel that I could have given him the offer, perhaps that was available to him elsewhere. And he's got to pay bills and he's got a family to feed. So it's probably the best thing for him to do was to take that offer.
Because you've signed so many fighters recently, is there the danger of this happening again with any other fighter?
No, I think potentially ones that, say, not sure about, because Tom's a really good fighter, but when you've got so many fighters, if they're not willing to move along at the level that you want them to, and again, I stress not Tom, but the team, then I can't guarantee that I can give them or take them where I want to go as quickly as I want to go. And I think that by signing so many fighters, there's always going to be ins and outs. But at the end of the day, I think the ones that will be leaving are the ones that perhaps aren't performing to the level or moving as fastly, as quickly as I'd want them to. Because the ones that are happy as Larry, and they're boxing all the time and they're getting title opportunities and more money. And I think the ones, if you potentially get a little bit stale or you're out for a long time and you're having all these, I can see that someone else can come in and just offer you 10 or 15 grand to sign on, and that seems like the right thing to do. Time will tell long term whether that's the right thing, but I can't sit here and say that I could have given Tom the guarantee that I'd work for him for the next 2 or 3 years, and we do this and we do that and we do that, and someone else has. So it's probably financially the best move for him, as long as that can be delivered. Obviously people can promise all kinds, but I really wish him all the best. I think he's a fantastic guy. He's got a lovely family, and like everyone, I want to just see everyone do well. So he'll go to a team where he's a bigger star, if you like, because we've got so many fighters and so many big stars, and maybe he'll get a little bit more focused than he would have got with us. That's not because we're not doing our job, but unfortunately, when you've got a team of so many great fighters, the ones that aren't performing as well, or the ones that have been out injured, of course, aren't the primary focus. So he'll get that focus, and as long as he gets what he's been promised, then I hope that it's a good move for him.
You've signed Robbie Davies Jr., who's with Dave Caldwell. What is the link up then with, as regards to, has Dave still involved as his manager?
Yeah, absolutely. Dave's steering the ship on that one. I just watched Robbie Davies when he was on our show, Curtis Woodhouse against Derry Matthews, and I've seen some other footage of him, and I really rated him. And obviously, when we had Tom Stalker, he was the same weight class and from the same city, so I didn't really think it was right of me to go and talk to Dave about Robbie Davies and etc. etc. But when we got wind of Tom, I phoned Dave up and said, look, this opportunity's come up. I really rate Robbie Davies. I'd like to get behind him and work with you on him. And he was over the moon, and so was Robbie. So we have a bit of fun with that. He'll box on March the 15th on our Liverpool card, and various other cards throughout the year, but also box on Dave's show as well. So I think it's a really good opportunity for Robbie Davies. And I think there's a few fighters. You see this happening quite a bit lately with Steve Wood fighters as well, where they can remain on Steve Wood shows and still box on Matchroom shows, whether it's Tommy Coyle did that in the infancy, and then Josh Warrington, perhaps these kind of people. And also that can happen with Dave Caldwell as well. Smaller promoters, and I don't mean that disrespectfully, shouldn't be worried about linking up with the TV promoters to work with their fighters, because they're bringing them on in the right way. And if we can build Robbie Davies Jr.'s profile correctly, then he can top Caldwell shows probably sooner rather than later. So I think it's a good opportunity for everyone involved.
I spoke to Kell Brook at the Grudge Match premiere the other day, the press conference rather. Can you just also clarify this situation for Kell Brook's fans know exactly what's going on regarding Sean Porter?
Yeah, so when Sean Porter won the title, we get 6 months before he has to face his mandatory challenger, which is Kell Brook. So from there, he's allowed to have a voluntary, and Kell's allowed to fight. By the way, Kell mustn't lose because he loses his number one position. But neither fighter can box after April the 14th. That's the cut-off date. So if Porter wants to have a voluntary, he has to do it before April the 14th. If Kell wants to have a warm-up, he has to do it before April the 14th. So that's where we're at. And then he'll have to fight him, I think, before June. And he's going to get his shot. It's solid. But unfortunately, through him winning, if it was Alexander, I think he'd have to fight him before April. So he'd have to wait an extra 2 or 3 months, which, because of how long we've been waiting, is not the end of the world. It's just really about what do we do now, I want him to fight again. I'm looking at him fighting on March the 15th in Liverpool on that show there. It's just a case of, obviously with the Porter fight, we're not going to take a really big, difficult fight. But at the same time, he's got to keep motivated. He's got to train properly. He's got to go through camp properly. He's got to stay professional, in his preparation for that fight. So I'm going to see him tomorrow, and then we'll have a chat. But it's likely March the 15th he'll be out, and then he's got to fight Porter before June.
Carson Jones free?
No. Carson Jones is fighting Anthony Mundine.
I know, I saw it the other day.
Good fight.
Tony Bellew will return on that same show for his first fight at cruiserweight.
Mm-hmm. Yep, correct. I mean, that bill's going to be phenomenal. Really excited about the bill. You've got obviously the Smith brothers on there. You've got Cal Yaffa in his first title fight, Rocky Fielding, and will defend his Commonwealth title. Tony Bellew, potentially Kell Brook as well. Bellew will be back at cruiserweight. We're going through some opponents with him at the moment, but he wants to be moved along reasonably quickly. This first fight will be, for an intercontinental or a likewise belt, just to sort of find his feet at cruiserweight against a good opponent. Looking at a couple of world title challengers and former world champions as well, and then really crack on. Try and get that world title shot. I was with Sowlands, last week, having a chat and talking about the cruiserweight division. Marco Hook, Hernandez, Arslan. It's a great division. Afalabi, it's a good fight for Tony as well. So I think you can be moved along quite quickly. And the first fight will give us an understanding of how quickly he can be moved along in that division.
Have we had any progress or any updates on the FROCH GROVES rematch situation?
Not really, no. I mean, I've stated from the beginning that Carl really has 4 options, in my opinion, which is Ward, Groves, Golovkin and Chavez. Chavez is very much an option. We're in talks with them at the moment. Obviously, the WBC have ordered a final eliminator with him and De Gale, but against Froch, he'd have a shot at 2 belts, so that's kind of irrelevant. I'm seeing Carl tomorrow. The Groves fight remains the fight that brings the most money to the table. It remains the fight that the most people want to see. It's still my primary focus. I do like the idea of a Chavez fight in Vegas, and at this point in Carl's career, I think that appeals to him as well. But we'll have to sit down, and I think George, we've spoken to George, and we understand what he wants for the fight, and I don't think we're a million miles away. So hopefully, I still want to make that fight. I'm hopeful we can get there. But as before, Carl does have options, and I guess at this stage of his career, it's about what he wants to do that he hasn't done already, kind of thing, And the idea of a fight against someone like Chavez on pay-per-view on HBO in Vegas is very appealing, So
To who?
To Carl Froch and to the again, there's a worldwide audience here. There isn't just the domestic audience, which is the British audience. So the Chavez Froch fight appeals to a lot of people worldwide. It doesn't appeal to anywhere near as many people in the UK as Froch Groves 2. But there is another world out there other than just the UK, unfortunately. But again, I won't lie to you. I'd still like to make Froch Groves 2, and I think we can get there. I do. But we have to look at all the options, go through everything with a fine-tooth comb, and make the right decision for Carl Froch. It's not a decision in terms of which is a tougher fight or which is, because they're all tough fights at this level. So that's the answer, and I'll see him tomorrow.
When I spoke to George Groves at the same press conference the other day, he said that he was in talks with a number of promoters, mentioned Al Heyman, Lou DiBella. Where do you fit into all this? Are you speaking to him about possibly getting him back on the 2 matchroom ranks?
Yeah, we've spoken, and my primary concern really is to make the rematch rather than to sign George Groves. I'd like him to be part of the matchroom team, and but that fight takes precedence over anything else at the moment. No other promoter can even get close to the money he'd earn from that fight. George certainly won't do anything without making sure that fight's not available. And if it is available, then he'll jump at the chance and he'll earn a nice few quid. So all these other people, I spoke to HBO, and because the Froch Groves fight was on a smaller channel in America, the bigger networks aren't really high on George Groves right now because they haven't really seen enough of him or seen enough of that fight. So the fight with a huge amount of money for George Groves is the Carl Froch fight, and every other fight out there bears very little significance in terms of the money compared to that fight. So we're talking a lot, about his future, but we're not talking about other options. We're just talking about the Carl Froch fight because that's the fight that makes the most sense to everybody, in my opinion. So hopefully we can get that done, and then talks about him becoming a member of the team, I'm sure will evolve from there. I'd like him to be. I think he's a great fighter. I said so from day one. But I don't want that to get in the way of potentially making the fight.
With Froch being obviously your main priority, being your fighter, will Froch, regardless of the Groves situation, will he fight in May, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think May or June. I mean, you've got the World Cup in June and July, so you've got to be careful scheduling-wise. I think end of May makes sense. And I've already got the ball rolling on various venues for that end of May fight, early June fight, just in case Froch Groves does end up happening. And, there's some spectacular venues been discussed and meetings have taken place with them. And I think it's the biggest fight Britain would have ever seen, Froch Groves 2. And, that makes me very excited as well. But again, we've got people that it's all very well, just because I want the fight to happen, you can just go to someone and say, right, that's happening. I work for Carl Froch at the end of the day. And we all sit down together collectively and make a decision. But like I said, that is the biggest fight out there, in my opinion, financially. So if that's what we're in the game for, which I believe ultimately people are, then I think it's got a great chance of happening.
Talking earlier on with Anthony Joshua, and we sort of chatting about this potentially at some point, I don't know if it'll be next year or not, or this year rather, of Hughie Fury and Anthony Joshua. And that fight appeals to you, doesn't it?
Well, the Tyson Fury fight appeals to me more. I think Tyson Fury against Anthony Joshua is a great fight. I'm not talking about in the coming months, but I'm not talking about too far away. I think Hughie Fury is a really good young fighter. I think what Peter's done with him is exceptional in terms of the amount they've got him out. I watched Tyson's video the other day from Cannes, and he said that my bum went when Peter replied that I'd have to get my checkbook out, let's make the fight. I'd be more than willing to put Anthony in with Tyson Fury, well, both actually, but Hughie first in the next couple of months. I think it's a great fight for British boxing. I think Hughie's a great young fighter, so is Anthony. And people always say, "Oh, wouldn't it be better to wait till they've both got belts and all that?" And I always say, why? Because sometimes they don't both always win belts, and sometimes when they do, it can't happen anyway. So if the fight's available to happen, say in the summer, and maybe it could be for a British title, but I think Anthony's developing mentally. We know physically he's in great shape. He's going to fight Dorian Darch on February the 1st in Cardiff. Then he'll fight Hector Avila, who I think went 9 rounds with Chisora up in Glasgow. And then he'll box again. I think after those 3 fights, I'm really ready to push him on to British title level. I think he's that good. I don't think there's many domestic heavyweights, now that David Haye looks like he might be departing, who he couldn't beat right now. To be honest with you, I'm not saying that they couldn't beat him, because it's a tough sport and he's still a relative novice, but I'd back him against every domestic heavyweight right now. And I think he's an exceptional talent. But Tyson was on good form in Cannes, and we're definitely not afraid of Hughie Fury, and he's definitely not afraid of Tyson Fury either. But it was nice to say Tyson felt that I was good for the game, and I think he's good for the game as well. You're good for the game as well, Tyson. Sometimes.
FROCH Groves to aside, what super fights are you capable of making this year?
I still think we can make Brook against Khan. It's a fight I'd love to make. It's right up there with FROCH Groves too, in my opinion, in terms of my desire to make a fight. I think we can make Frampton against Quigg, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't know what Frampton's doing, because he's pulled out of the final eliminator for the IBF title, which means that he's now not going to be mandatory for Kiko Martinez. So he must have a world title shot already lined up. But we're talking to Martinez as he is, and what I'm hearing is they're going to have a voluntary, a little bit of an easier one first, and then fight their mandatory, which they expected to be Carl Frampton. But he's chose not to have that fight for the mandatory position. I know he's talking to Leo Santa Cruz, but again, I don't know. I mean, but I still think that Quigg against Frampton can happen later on this year. Other fights, I mean, from a slightly lesser, away from the super fights, we're going to make Mitchell against Coyle. Should Coyle come through on February 22nd, I think that's a really good fight. Hoping to make Crawler against John Murray. I think that's a great fight for Manchester. There's some really good fights out there. I still think Bellew against Cleverley's got some potential at cruiserweight. I think that's another good fight. I think domestic, I said in an interview recently that my plan was to try and make as many domestic fights as possible in 2014. I think people like that a lot more. I think it has more relevance to obviously our market. And our first one up, Selby against Monroe, Reese against Buckland, Joshua against Darch. They're all domestic fights. I think that's important. So that's the move, and everything's going great moving into 2014.
I know he's not your fighter, but can you see a potential return of David Haye this year?
I don't think so. I mean, I just think that when you've been through a big operation like that and you haven't boxed for so long, and I just don't know whether he's going to carry the same credibility now than he would have before. Would he sell the same tickets? Would people buy into the fight again? And he's achieved a lot. I don't think he really needs to fight. I think he wanted to fight Tyson Fury, and he wasn't able to for various reasons. But now that he can't have that fight, what's the other fights out there for him? I mean, you know, he's going to fight the winner of the WBC fight, HEARN against Areola. It's not much of it, you know, commercially that's not a huge fight. The only fight that's really big for him is a Vladimir return. Fury fight still, but that's lost its buzz and its heartbeat. You know, or even a Vitali fight, who doesn't look like he's going to fight again. So I think that'll be the end of David Haye, in my opinion. But whatever he chooses to do, you know, good luck to him. He's achieved, you know, more than 99.9% of people ever will in life.
Why do you look darker than Joshua?
The weather in Essex was unbelievable over the Christmas period. I had 10 days in Mauritius.
It looks a bit manufactured, like spray tan.
No. 10 days in Mauritius, mate.
You were sitting next to Joshua.
Yeah.
You did look darker than him. Yeah.
No.
Worryingly.
It was pure suntan, mate. Pure suntan. I don't have spray tans. Listen, I won't lie to you. I've had a couple of sunbeds over the years. But never a spray tan. I'm not big on that at all. Any geezer that has a spray tan.
I've never been.
What do you think of geezers having
Spray tan, not the one.
No. I've had a couple of sunbeds over the year. I won't lie to you.
So was you there over Christmas?
Mauritius. No, I left on the 29th and I was there for sort of 11 days. It was lovely. It was a much needed break. You know, we had a really busy end to last year and everyone worked hard and I feel refreshed. My mojo's bouncing again. But I've got to say, and any parent will know what I mean. I've got two beautiful young daughters and so I love them more than the world. Travelling on a plane with a 1.5-year-old and a 4-year-old, it is absolutely brutal. I got the 1.5-year-old 4 hours into the flight, all the lights are off, screaming for an hour. I don't know what was wrong with her. And I got two moany old gits behind. I mean, like horrible people, combined weight of 50 stone, a pair of them, going. The old geezer, he nearly copped one, and then they got everyone else moaning, and then it's horrible. It's brutal.
You was going to hit a 25-stone man.
Yeah, well, it's easier to hit a 25-stone man than a fit geezer, isn't it? Because otherwise he might hit you back.
True.
You can't pick your opponents well. You know, this is the art of being a
That's what you do, isn't it? But, I mean, I had a good Christmas.
Did you?
Not really.
Why not?
I went to midnight mass, which was all right. I had this
Is that a club? Is that a club?
No, church.
Oh, right, okay.
And New Year's Eve I didn't go out because I couldn't talk, so didn't really want to go out clubs. Start asking girls for their phone numbers, like, "Alright, what's your number?" Like that.
Yeah, you ask birds for their phone numbers.
I don't usually have to be honest.
See you at work with a bit of crumpet. I'd like to see it. I can't imagine it. Do you get your phone out and start interviewing?
Be honest, right? Be honest.
Yeah.
Do you think I can pull a bird? Yes or no?
Well, you give it the old, oh, you know me. I'm in the media. You know, I've got a film company. Do you want to be?
Never say that.
Do you want to be in my next movie?
No, idiot. I never say that.
I do think you use your position to your advantage.
I never do.
Really?
No, I don't. I'm not going to start telling.
What's your game with the birds? Is it like? It's not. I mean, I think you're one of those mateys. You know, like come with me. I'm your, you know, I'm your little gay friend, and you know, I'll be your BFF. Is that how you play it? I can imagine. You get pally with them, and then that's just before the right hypnol goes in, and then it's game over.
Do you know what you're saying here, don't you? What you're accusing me of? No, I've got a couple of strategies. I've only really got about 2 or 3 like girl mates. Yeah. You know, ones that is like mates, and the rest are all like holiday in. If that's what it is, holiday in.
I don't know. I can't imagine you in that environment. I've never really had a night out with you, have I? Well, I have in Sheffield, and you were absolutely paralytic. But I don't know. I think you'd be a good wingman. Because like, I'd just go, Coogan, go and talk to them, and then you go over there, balls it all up, and then you just steam in. You know what I mean?
Do you know who that is? Sky Sports Eddie Hearn.
That's IFL TV, Coogan Cassius.
No,
because you go down that sugar and you do a little bit of filming. And I've been in there before, and your pictures come up on the thing, you know, like interviewing, and I think...
I'll be honest with you. Yeah. I used that the other day. So I was talking to some bird at the bar. Anyway, so I'm waiting. It's on a like a loop, isn't it? So like it's every like 4 minutes 30.
so like 4 minutes 15, you go straight over to him
like
and say, "Oh yeah, by the way, I don't know if bloody hell, look, it's me. Oh look, because I've got my own media company, haven't I? I actually own the club. sugar up, yeah, it's me and Mick, you know. Like,
Do you know what? I don't do that. This is what I do. So pretend you're the bird, right? So say it gets to like 4 minutes. So I'm clocking in my head what 4 minutes is. I know the advert that comes on before. It's coming up, and all I do is I'm there at the bar, and I just go. No, look, just play along with it. So I go. So look. So they look, and they go, what are you doing up there? You know.
fucking that's smooth, mate. That is.
So that's just one of them.
Shows you
I've
how
got
hard
loads.
Shows you how hard to nick a
I've got
bird
loads.
down and sugar up.
Listen, if your picture was in the sugar hut on a loop every 4 or 5 minutes, you was chatting to a bird, you were single, wouldn't you use that to some sort of advantage?
Yeah, but I wouldn't go. Hey, look.
I don't do it like that. I just give him a little nudge and go, look.
Fucking mate, that is rotten.
It works.
Like the birds you were talking to and all.
No, I've had a couple of rough ones lately. No, seriously.
At least you're honest. Bad.
No, not rough, but a couple of ones I met in the sugar hut the other night. They weren't all that, to be honest. Yeah. I'll tell you where we ended up Friday night till 7 in the morning.
Holiday Inn.
No, not the Holiday Inn, but you know the people that we went round, so I don't want to mention it.
Yeah. What birds?
A bit of a mix.
Was it?
Bit of an after party going on.
Alright, you can tell me after.
All right, well, listen, I think Alex Morrison's just arrived, so. All right, well, thanks for talking to IFL TV. And,
Roll on 2014.
Roll on 2014, indeed.